Okay, a quick intro here for you guys. I'm just going to say around 19 minutes is when I actually dive into the love at first sight aspects. The rest is just the setup and sort of an overview of how, this has all been evolving and how it all comes together. So with that being said, if you feel like it's dragging on too long, go ahead and skip ahead to about 19 minutes, and that's where you will get to really dig into what are the love at first sight aspects to look for in the synastry. Hey there, all my Rotation 411 Astrology subscribers. So I just did the 4th video in the Moon Conjunction, like Twin Flame Soulmate series. But I've been meaning to do this video for a long time. This is going to be sort of a standalone, but sort of a bonus to that series. It's the love at first sight video. So I have a few aspects that indicate this. I had someone ask me a long time ago, a couple years ago now, what about love at first sight? Like, can you see it in the astrology? And yes, I can, but there are a few different variations of it. So we're going to dig into that today. So I just want to quickly, since I was reviewing the Moon Soulmate series, I just want to recap. So I'll put the comment below, I'll pin it with all of the links to those videos in that series. But the first video, I'm just really going over, what is a twin flame and a false twin, etc. The second video, we talk about moon dignity in Vedic astrology, and it's a little long and drawn out. I just kind of reviewed it. I talk a lot about how the dignity matters a lot in sign conjunctions, but then if you watch the 4th video that I just did, now that I've observed more relationships, I don't find it to be as important when it's in the same sign. So I just want to clarify that if you're kind of going through the videos feeling like I might have contradicted myself. And then the 3rd video is me going over like a relationship I had in my childhood where I thought that we had a moon trine. Truth is, actually, now that I looked a little deeper, I can't confirm that we had a moon trine. His moon might have actually been in Gemini. And I actually believe that might be very true because he had 2 children a month apart when we were teenagers with two women. And that's a very Gemini moon thing to do. So the more that I think about it, I don't think his moon was actually in Taurus. So that was something I kind of want to just start this video with and kind of want to like add on to the other videos that I didn't somehow manage to get in there is, it's like, oh, okay, there's 12 signs. So, if a moon conjunction is all you need or a moon trine's all you need, then, just go find someone with that. That's kind of how I treat you guys sometimes. Like, why are you even entertaining this person when you have a moon square? But the thing is that it's actually pretty rare to come across a moon conjunction within, and I usually say 10-degree moiety. I think the moiety for the moon is actually 12 degrees, and there's a very significant connection that I have with someone where his moon is in Virgo with mine in proper dignity, but his moon is like at 12 degrees in 50 minutes outside of, or it's like basically half a degree out of orb from the 12-degree maximum moiety of the moon. So, even though it is a very strong, one of the most significant connections that I've had, that I could pretty much sum it up to that might be one of the reasons that he wouldn't necessarily work out as the one, although he definitely is a very close energetic match, if not. But anyways, with that being said, so the trine, I've literally only come across my one friend that I did mention, who's a female friend I've known my whole life. She's an Aquarius, so our suns are sextile, and her moon is in Taurus, so our moons are trine. And even then, we're not really that close anymore. We both moved away from the homeland, though, right? The moon rules the motherland, and then we lost touch, but we were always very close back home. And lived together, and our families were very close, right? Because the moon rules family. But yeah, it just, and then I had one manager at work who has a Capricorn moon, and I remember, I just never really was interested in him. I just think he's like a cool, fun person. He's a Gemini, so our suns are sextile. But I remember one of our coworkers one time, like, what is going on with you two? Like, because, the moons are subconscious, and he would like sulk because he liked me and he really felt this connection. But I like him as a person, but I didn't have romantic feelings, but I did feel very comfortable around him, I guess, on a subconscious level. So she was like going, what is going on between you two? And I'm like, I don't know why he feels so like we're beholden to each other when I've never allowed it to be anything beyond friendship. Like, yeah, he might flirt and make little, oh, I like you, or let's go out sometime. And I'm like, no, it's okay, in a very professional way, of course. But anyways, so the thing is that, especially with earth moons, though, it's going to have a lot of a work theme to it. You might meet in career or at your workplaces when you have, you know, your moons in earth signs, because Virgo rules the 6th house of work, Capricorn rules the midheaven career, and Taurus rules money and resources. So with that being said, I'm just saying that aside from my father, whose moon was in Taurus, and this manager at work, I've dated a lot of men in my day. That's how I've kept looking at the charts and figuring this all out. I've never, there's a couple where I can't verify their time, where it's possible that so there was one guy, he didn't know his time, but his moon was either in Taurus or Gemini, kind of same thing as the guy I grew up with. And so, and I would be willing to bet he's quite the player too. He probably has his moon in Gemini also. So, but he was a Taurus, so he had that strong energy. But I would just say that most likely I've never dated anyone that I have a moon trine with in my whole life. And I've really, the men that I have a moon conjunction with, I've only actually like dated one of them. We spent time together and hung out, but decided not to start a relationship like formally. But there is the one kid in the third video. I think I talk about two. The one I thought I had the moon trine with, and one I have a possible conjunction with, but I'm not sure if his moon is like a below or really close below mine in Virgo, right above it, or pushed into Libra. But we were always very drawn to each other growing up, and I go really in depth into that in the third video. But it's most likely his moon's probably sitting in Libra, you know, and that's why it didn't work. But we were drawn to each other because my ascendant's there. Anyways, I just went on about a lot of this in the fourth video. Maybe you guys could put a timestamp for those people that want to like wait till I get into the actual love at first sight part. But I just wanted to recap those videos if you want to know what's in them. That's basically what's in them. In the fourth video, we go over the one exception, which is the semi-sextile for moons being out of polarity. So when it comes to love at first sight, of course, kind of segueing from, you know, going over the moon series into this, is that you know, love at first sight, we'd like to think that's only going to happen once in our life, right? You see someone, you just feel like they're the one, you know it. Well, how many times do people meet someone, feel like they're the one, and it doesn't work out, and you fall flat on your face within a few months? That would be called Mars square Jupiter right there. So that is, you know, that is one I just want to like wipe off the slate really quick. If you have Mars square Jupiter, it's not necessarily going to be like you look in each other's eyes and it's like this magnetic pull or this feel that you're the one, but it's more like you're just going to hit it off. So for example, I dated an Aries when I was 18 and right before my 19th birthday, and he had a Cancer moon, so our moons were sextile, and our suns were, he was April 16th, so our suns were at a 5-degree orb, so we really hit it off. And I have a lot of planets in Jupiter, so are in Aries, like Jupiter, so Aries really, and I have a lot of harmony in Aries, so Aries really is supposed to be my best match. So he and I hit it off that very first night we met at like a house party with mutual friends. We all decided to go to another party, and like by the time we all parked and were going to the other party, we had to like walk through this kind of ravine down to this neighborhood from where we parked up on a hill. And I remember he gave me a piggyback ride down there, and we were just like inseparable. I went back to his house that night, and he actually had another friend there, so it was like a get together. It wasn't like I went home with him necessarily, but that very first night he's like, I want to date you, I want to take you to I think it's a Cheesecake Factory, but there's like a similar thing in my hometown that was a really cool restaurant, and if it was a Cheesecake Factory, it was like a very unique one. It's not like the ones you see around California where I live now. So so he, you know, took me out, and we were just instantly together, and it was great. It was just, we were so simpatico. I even went to his father's funeral with him, which, you know, and the moons were sextile, so it could have lasted a lifetime, right? But it wasn't like love at first sight. It was like we clicked, So it wasn't in the eyes, right? Love at first sight. So that's Mars square Jupiter, but it will only last about 2 to 6 months. And you can reconnect over the years, and you might really long for each other and feel like that was your person. Why didn't it work? But Mars square Jupiter just won't work. It's just not your person. Even though other energies like the moon sextile and the sun conjunction could very much, he could probably be very similar energetically to whoever the one is for me. But it wasn't my time to stop. Like, he was meant to go off in the Marines and like live in different states, and I was meant to move down here. So, you know, we just had different life paths. So we couldn't get too attached to each other, right? So with that being said, Mars square Jupiter, it's not going to be love at first sight, but it's going to feel like you've met the one. So I just wanted to kind of knock that one out of the way. And it's false, okay? But most of the other love at first sight ones have sustenance to them. You know, when you see this person and you lock eyes, there is really something there. So I quickly, at a certain point, I'm going to go over sort of the loving aspects, or the ones that would draw you to someone that aren't love at first sight. But just to, when we get there, it's just to show you that you could have these love at first sight aspects and have other loving aspects and have a great relationship, or you could have a love at first sight aspect and not have any other, you know, anything else in the astrology rewarding, or you could have really terrible things and you try to stick with this person because the love at first sight was so strong and you just know it's your person. So I really want to, I'm more making this, aside from it piqued my mind when someone asked me about it, is to teach you guys how to differentiate between what really is love at first sight and what is deceiving you and making you work way too hard for nothing, okay? It's more like a chemistry type thing, right? So really quickly, before I really dive in, and then you guys can timestamp it, in the 4th video, and I've been touching on this a little more lately, I say I don't know why, you know, we end up finding a Mars square Jupiter person. Like, did I meet him at 18 just so the idea of him could carry me through to a certain age, you know, whatever it was, or to help me recognize the, you know, twin flame energy. And then I say, you know, I think part of it is we get all mixed up because we travel and we move and we don't stay in one spot, because a lot of times when you find high school sweethearts that have been together for life, or good married couples, they often do meet in their locale and where they were born area, okay? So so part of it, I think, is just we're all so mixed up. I mean, I have in my birth chart that my Jupiter in my 7th house, that my spouse will most likely be of a different background or origin, or they're like, will have a parent born in a foreign land or from a different culture. So, you know, my ex-husband was, his father was born in Colombia. He's Colombian. You know, I've dated a lot of different backgrounds and cultures. So aside from that, though, if you don't have it in your birth chart, most people were, if you look at most marriages where the moons are compatible and there are no malefic deal breakers, they're born somewhat close in proximity. You know, it could be like the west coast of the United States or the east coast, or it could be the same city or the same state, but they're born in the same sort of region, okay? So with all this mixing, I also think it has to do with cultural conditioning, right? You guys are being marketed to, because as individuals, you're a better consumer. You spend more money when you're a single person. You have a higher they can tax you more, for one. You have a higher disposable income. You know, I've mentioned this before in other videos, but the reason we have Valentine's Day is because Saint Valentine was beheaded because the Roman Empire outlawed marriage, and Saint Valentine kept marrying people because the Roman government knew that people were more powerful as a union. It was harder to control them and have them submit and, you know, work like, you know, under crazy conditions. They have to provide more, you know, they have to pay them more because they have a family to take care of, etc., etc. There's so anyways, so there's a big undercurrent of that, whether you want to believe it or not. You think I'm a conspiracy theorist, in our current society and culture. They don't want you guys to be couples, because why? Because married couples live longer, they're happier. So a union is just so much more powerful than an individual. So they don't want that. They don't want a bunch of married people. They need a certain percent to like maintain society, because married people are sort of pillars of society in a way, and they're kind of almost like upper echelon, what's that, like a lifeline to the, you know, single people as they're trying to navigate life. So there's a certain structure and a hierarchy. So it's like single people are down here at the bottom, okay? Married people, dual earner income households, they're taxed less, they have children, so they're up here. And then like the single people that make money, they're actually paying for everybody else's kids. So you know, and you notice even really powerful married couples that probably don't even like each other stay together. Marriage is a very powerful institution. I studied sociology, and I'm here to spread that to the world, and that's why the work of divinetimingdatabase.org is so important, to counteract those conditionings. They put it in the media, all this stuff. Like, they want you to think that, you know, love is out of your reach, and, you know, and then they build the algorithms on the dating sites, so it's a hookup culture. And a lot of you are so conditioned and programmed that you don't really want to meet the one. That's why you don't submit to the database, because you would rather sit here and focus on the 5 that aren't treating you right and that are breadcrumbing you and wonder what's wrong with your self-worth than actually do something proactive and meet the one. I'm sorry, you guys, I'm just being really honest. It's very frustrating for me when I'm like, I've been illuminated with the truth here, and, you know, you'll order $10-15 readings from me, but you won't submit to the database to meet the one. You know, that to me is mind-boggling. All right, you trust me enough to tell you about the one that's not the one, but you don't trust me enough to find you the one. All right, you guys, you figure that out. You let me know why that is in the comments. So one more thing I want to touch on, then we're really going to dig into the love at first sight aspects, is the sample population. So in the 4th video, I touched on how I met this astrologist, and, you know, and I've been contemplating, is it the observer effect? Am I just pulling to me examples of what reproves that I'm right? Like, okay, this moon conjunction, they're married 50 years. Am I just putting the blinders on and not seeing the ones that exclude my theories? No. I would say yes, that of course that's always a possibility, because everything, there's observer effect. Is it Einstein that said the observer? It's a physics thing where you change what you observe and look at, you know. So it's like thought transference. If somebody's like watching you thinking that you're incompetent and waiting for you to fail, it's going to be a lot harder for you to succeed under that person's like direct focus on you, right? But once that person's sort of out, like they've taken their focus off you and they're doing something else, then you start to kind of thrive again, right? It's like why narcissistic relationships are so abusive, because you're kind of flourishing in your own, so you attract the narcissist, and then they want a piece of you, and then they just basically, you know, knock you down and take you from yourself. So with that being said, yes, it is possible that, you know, I'm just continuing to find examples of what prove it, because it proves the theory. I don't know why I just went off on the narcissistic rant, but here's the other thing, kind of going back into the sociology aspect of this, and this is kind of this is going to be a more sociological based video than most of the ones that I did, because at the end we're going to get into this actual study, and it's on the divinetimingdatabase.org site under how it works, but I'm going to save it for the end because I know for a lot of you that's going to be just way too analytical, and I'm just going to really go over the love at first sight aspects, but I just want to say one more thing is, sample populations are huge in science, and especially in the social sciences. So when we're looking at a population of 8 billion people, and I'm pulling, and my clients are all over the world. They're coming to me from Australia, from Israel, from the United States, from Canada. I have clients all over the world, literally, so on a regular basis. So if I'm pulling 1,000 people randomly from the global population, and 99% of the time or more it is aligning the same, that actually is quite, I want to say empirical, just to sound sophisticated here, like empirical data, but I don't know. We're gonna get into stats and stuff at the end, but it's nothing in nature. I don't think there are any stats in nature that prove themselves over and over. And if God created the Mazzaroth and he has a perfect design, then there really isn't going to be any errors in it, you know? The only error would be human error of interpretation. So what I'm trying to say is that you can't just pull 500 people out of a sample of 500 people from one city or every city in the world and get the same results over and over again. That's not the observer. I mean, you can't really say, it's sort of like nature versus nurture, the great debate. You can't really say whether everything we observe is just going to keep repeating itself, but just if you look at most sociological studies, you're not going to have that kind of accuracy rate where you're pulling a sample and it's replicating itself to that extent, okay? Because it's all replicating this, you know, the stars. So I'm going to take a quick pause, and then we're just going to really dive into the actual aspects of love at first sight, and you'll see how this all ties together. Okay, so let me just preface this by saying that I do feel that house overlays are very powerful when it's going to come to sort of a initial attraction, or maybe even love at first sight as well. So I might do another video on that eventually. I got to think about it more. It just came to me as I was getting into these. You know, a moon or a sun on the ascendant or descendant could definitely create a very initial spark and attraction, and we could explore, you know, how that might pertain to love at first sight. But I like to make this as accessible or applicable to everyone, and not everyone has their birth times. So you can look up these aspects that I'm about to list off without the birth times. The moon ones are a little bit trickier. I have a ton of videos on it. I'll link them around when I get around to it. But yeah, I have videos on how to figure out your birth chart and your moons and run your aspects and see what you have with someone. So yeah, I'll link those. There'll be like a moon one, and then there will be how to find your moon sign. It's a quick video too. It's like 3 minutes using divinetimingdatabase.com, and then how to run the synastry aspects. Okay, so with that being said, when you run the synastry aspects, now the cool thing about divinetimingdatabase.com is that I'm writing my own definitions, which you can't find anywhere else. They're the ones that when I'm actually helping clients, and I just made a book. You can pre-order it, I think by the end of June. Actually, it might be today, of 2023. That really, it's like, if you don't want to enter the database and you don't want to go on the database to run your charts for people, and you just want to self-study, it's sort of just giving you all of my definitions and all of that laid out in a book format as well. But the quickest way you can access it is divinetimingdatabase.com. That's where you can run your own relationships. All right. And really quick, I actually want to say I just created the package for the birthday finder. So my more complex software, I have more RAM now. I'm able to actually search all the people that you have moon compatibility with that you don't have malefic deal breakers with. I can actually search their birth dates. Okay, so I could tell you, like, okay, September 15th of 1992 to September 18th of 1992. If somebody's born those 3 days, they're a perfect match for you. You have no deal breakers and you have moon compatibility. Now, it can be give or take a day or two based on location. So if they're born on the other side of the world and they're born September 14th, 1992, and you're like, man, they're just a day short of my window, you might want to still double check. You might want to still run the synastry, learn how to do that, or come to me. I can do it for you. I have a package without the birth times that's pretty affordable on rotation411.com if you want to look into any relationships where you don't have the birth time but you don't know exactly how to do it, and get into these, aspects and what they mean. So there, in the third video, I ramble on a lot, but there are a lot of examples of the good romance aspects, because we have a lot of divorce and deal breaker and red flag aspect videos out there on this channel. But anyways, so let's really now get into love at first sight. So this one I've been saving for you guys. Certain ones of them, the moon ones and the Venus Mars ones are going to have you see love at first sight with those, and it means something. Okay, I'm just gonna knock that out. We're gonna dig into each of these, more thoroughly. But here's one that you are going to have love at first sight, and I've never experienced this one, but I've read this definition, and I've had plenty of clients come to me and say it was love at first sight. So I know that this definition holds. Now, not all the definitions do hold, in my opinion, always. But this one definitely is very true to form from Cafe Astrology. It's Sun trine Pluto, okay? So I've never experienced this, like I said, but I've had enough clients come to me and go, it was love at first sight. So I'm going to read you this definition, maybe a little boring, and then we'll be done with this one. We'll get into the real hardy ones, all right? So if you have Sun trine Pluto, you definitely probably felt like it was love at first sight. It's positive aspect. It's love at first sight. That's the first line here. The great passion. They will be drawn to each other like two magnets. They will always have to see and touch each other. Very good sexual understanding, typically very passionate. It must be said that this type of relationship may not last forever. It may not develop into a quiet and tender love. If they part, it is close to impossible to stay friends because of the constant reminder of the passion that once existed. It's all or nothing with them. If they part, one will suffer when the passion of the other dies. It will be a very difficult time to live through. However, if they stay together, there's strength to gain from each other. So actually, that's usually when they're coming to me, like it was love at first sight, but they're so bummed, so that is one that you want to watch out for. All right, if you're looking at your synastry and you two have Sun trine Pluto and you swear it was love at first sight, make sure the moons are compatible and there are no malefic deal breakers, because Sun trine Pluto is not going to save you from any of that, no matter how intense it felt. Pluto is one of the most intense, deep planets. So the reason Sun trine Pluto feels like this instant love at first sight is because when the Sun is looking at Pluto, the Sun is seeing into the depths of the Pluto person's soul, and Pluto is looking at the Sun and feeling like somebody finally sees them, because the Sun is shining a light on their deepest, darkest secrets, basically, or things that they don't share with anyone. And the Sun is such a positive planet that they feel like they're not being judged. So there's a natural feel, like deep, and Pluto rules the 8th house of physical reproduction. So it's just this very instant, like not only subconscious, because that's Pluto, as well as the moon, right? A different type of subconscious, but Neptune, Pluto, and the moon would be the subconscious planets, right? So it's going to feel like a very intense initial attraction, like someone just looked into your soul. And what are the windows to the soul? The eyes. But this is, again, it's usually pretty disappointing because it's such an intense attraction. And unless you could find this with the moons being compatible and no malefic deal breakers, which I honestly don't see it that much in those kind of couples, but it would be a nice one to have in there. It would be like, we knew it from the start. Okay, so we checked that one off the list, and there's really not that many. So the other one I want to say, for me, I do feel like okay, hold on. So in this statistical thing, which I'm going to save till after we go over all the aspects, so and we're going to go thoroughly over this in a bit. So if you guys think this is boring, don't worry. I'm only going to touch on this for 2 seconds. It's moon to moon in a conjunct. It's all the main aspects, which we kind of really just went over a lot in the 4th video, moon video. But it's conjunction, opposition, square, trine, and sextile. It's moon to moon, Venus to Venus, and Mars to Mars. And then I do believe that there is... So I guess this doesn't actually allow for them to go Venus to Mars. So that's where I'm going next, all right? Venus to Mars is, for me, one of the love at first sight aspects that I've experienced, and also Mars conjunct Pluto, okay? Now, with the Mars conjunct Pluto one, though, I would have to go back because there might have been Sun trine Pluto or something like that there. But I'm going to say with Venus conjunct Mars, I've only experienced this with one person in proper dignity, meaning the man was Mars and I was Venus, within a tight orb. So I have one other guy friend that we have at like a 10-degree orb, and there's obviously like an attraction and understanding, but I don't know that it's tight enough to really make the relationship work despite any other challenges. But this guy that I had it in a pretty tight orb with, I know it was under 5 degrees. He and I, like, he was one of the first people I ever saw that I was like, oh, this is love at first sight. You know what I mean? And I don't know if I felt like he was the one, but I felt very drawn to him, and really liked to be in his energy. Our moons were sextile. His moon was in Scorpio. But my ex-husband, who I had met a little bit, a couple years before him, we had Mars conjunct Pluto, and also with him, initially upon meeting him, like I just felt like this was my person. Mars conjunct Pluto is a little bit of a toxic aspect because the boundaries get blurred. There are no boundaries. You sort of consume each other. And I like to say that it works in like friendship and stuff too, but I feel like at the end of the day, Pluto is a dark force, and Mars will fight. And eventually you're going to become, if not enemies, just on opposite lines when you have Mars conjunct Pluto. But for a long time, there's going to be like, you're not going to be able to separate each other from one another, and you're going to, Pluto, again, that subconscious draw, just like the sun, when Mars sees Pluto, it's kind of what I was talking about in the 4th video, how Scorpio and Aries are a very surprising duo, because Aries and Scorpio are ruled by Mars, but also that Pluto of Pluto's traditionally ruled by Mars, but modernly ruled by Pluto, right, because we didn't find Pluto until more recently. So that Pluto to Mars power is going to be happening in the conjunction, and so you're gonna see that again, sort of Mars seeing this ally in Pluto, and you're gonna instantly, most likely, connect, and it may be through the eyes. So you may see instantly, like, this person I feel an instant deep connection to. I don't know if I would have constituted Mars conjunct Pluto as much of love at first sight, but I would say that there was definitely a immediate recognition of one another, which could feel like it's the one in Fated, right? Because you're recognizing each other. You recognize that this is somebody that you have some probably karma with Pluto to play out. Okay, so that is also a little bit misleading, but you will feel it. It will be a very powerful pull. So you want to be mindful of these things, because what if you get sucked into a Mars conjunct Pluto thing and you deal with a lot of toxicity for 5 years of your life that you could have just held out and gone, oh no, that's, you know, it's like you see people that are in healthy relationships and you ask them, and they'll say that they'll tell you stories about how they, you know, there was a few people before that, you know, they kind of, it was like going well, but then they knew and they let those couple of people go and then they met the one, kind of a thing. So you would rather do that with a Mars conjunct Pluto. Like, it feels like we have something here to live out together, but most likely it's just going to hold you off from meeting someone that you could have something really nice with. Okay. Now, if you have Mars conjunct Pluto and your moons are conjunct and you don't have any other really challenging deal breakers, I would say it'd be worth giving it a shot. But if your moons are in different polarities, like you have a Leo moon and a Taurus moon, I would not deal with Mars conjunct Pluto. And that's a moon square, so you probably are going to waste 4 or 5 years of your life on that if you're available and not being discerning, you know, and not really looking out for red flags and just going with what you're attracted to, right? That chemistry. Mars conjunct Pluto is a lot of chemistry, okay? So the other one is Venus conjunct Mars, which I kind of started with. The guy that I had met a few years after, that I really felt probably one of the most powerful attractions to, at least like in the first part of my adulthood. So basically Venus conjunct Mars, it was magic whenever we were together. It was just like a fairy tale. We just would run off into the sunset together and just have the most amazing time. And it wasn't always like actually again, what am I saying, like physical. It was physical because Mars, right? But it wasn't always can I say sexual on YouTube? You know, it was just like very intimate and close, and just but you could see it. I could see it in his eyes right away. The first time I saw him, I saw it, you know, and the second time I saw him, I saw it. So it was there. Venus Mars conjunction, I would say, is less misleading. Now, I did go back and look at that one, so I don't know if I mentioned it in like the third video where I really ramble on. Our moons were sextile. We had Venus conjunct Mars, and so I thought the reason that we parted ways is just because it was just such an easy relationship. But I looked again and we actually had Mars square Saturn, which is a malefic deal breaker. I don't know how I missed that, so that's why that didn't work out. But Venus conjunct Mars was definitely worth enjoying, and we never really even though it didn't work out between us, we never had like a falling out. We always adored each other. Even now, you know, he's on his 3rd marriage, but every time he gets divorced, he hits me up and sees if I want to move home, you know. But anyways, so with that being said, those are the 3 that, you know, I want to touch on. And now we're going to get into the study, because here's the other 3. And the most important one always, of course, is moon to moon. Venus to Venus is going to feel, it's good. It's good to have your Venuses in a nice aspect. Even an opposition is soft to me with Venus. Even the moon opposition works well, right? Mars opposition, not so much. So with that being said, most of the planets that are going to create love at first sight attraction are going to be Moon, Venus, Mars, like in the study, but also Pluto is going to do that to you. And Pluto is deceptive, okay? Pluto is just, you are seeing each other's, you know, darkness and being accepting of it. It's not actually that you're meant to be. Just because somebody knows your secrets, like a therapist, doesn't mean that you should date them, okay? With that being said, that's almost like a BPT type thing to like bond to your therapist, right? And, all right, so you got to be mindful of that. That's like a codependency thing. So just quickly before we dig into this, the moon's really deep here again, and sort of this study, I do have to say, like, if you have Venus square Neptune or Venus conjunct Jupiter, or you know, or even Venus conjunct Moon, those are all really great marriage aspects. So Venus square Neptune is a fairy tale aspect, so you could possibly feel love at first sight with that one too. And again, it's really going to boil down to what the moons are and everything, because Neptune is very dreamy, and he's a higher octave of love and a Venus. So it is possible. The issue with me with Venus square Neptune, why I can't tell you, is because I would say the only other two that I really felt like I had like love at first sight with would be and you know, this is all with a grain of salt. It's like the levels of things, right? Because you could have an intense love at first sight with Sun trine Pluto, and it's not your person. So I'm not equating love at first sight to that's the one you're meant to be with. I'm saying that strong magnetic feeling you get when you first see someone, okay? And then I want to get into maybe what really is love at first sight, all right? But with that being said, the issue with me with Venus square Neptune is the only two people that I would say that I have it with a few people that I know actually, because it's generational. So like a lot of people born around the year of the goat in 79 are compatible with me as the year of the rabbit, but I have Venus square Neptune with all of them because Neptune is generational. So I didn't have love at first sight with every single one of them. I would say it was more, actually probably has to do with the moons there. So let's go. So yeah, so those wonderful loving aspects, you probably aren't going to feel right when you first meet the person, but you probably will be drawn in pretty quickly and feel comfortable with those kind of aspects. But that's what we're all, you know, ideally looking for, are those, you know, deep, oh, my chair's so squeaky, all, you know, those other ones like Venus trine Neptune and square. Even the square works well there, and Venus conjunct Moon and Jupiter, or Sun conjunct Jupiter. Those are beautiful. Moon conjunct Venus. Those are what we want, okay? But we have to get past the love at first sight part to find out, you know, and run the charts is probably the easiest way, rather than just navigating through it blindly and hoping that you have those kind of aspects. Let's see here. 1 out of 6, 2 out of 6, 3 out of 6. Okay, perfect. So now it's a little bit meticulous part. I'm just really going to go over this study. But right before we do that, I'm going to say lastly that Venus conjunct Venus, and we saw this in the Johnny Depp and Amber Heard video, they have their Venus conjunct, and that's what kept them together through their Saturn square Mars, or Saturn square Pluto and Mars square Jupiter. Like the Venus conjunct Venus is what kept them hanging on to each other. So that is a very deep love aspect. Your love languages are the same. If they're in a tight orb especially, but even in the same sign, Venus is just, you're going to feel very much in love with this person. They're your ideal, okay? But Moon, I don't know that Venus conjunct Venus is going to be love at first sight. It's going to be like love at first contact. Like once you connect, Venus conjunct Venus. Venus is a soft planet which acquiesces. So, but still, I think the love is strong enough that they want to overcome the odds, right? They feel it in their heart chakra. But the reality is Venus, I mean, in their relationship, they didn't have moon compatibility. So Venus conjunct Venus overcame a lot. And I actually had a huge, long discussion with a client about it, where they have Venus conjunct Venus. It's so powerful, but their moons aren't compatible. So Venus conjunct Venus is definitely a very, very strong love aspect, but I'm not going to say that it's love at first sight. I think it takes a little bit of getting acquainted to find Venus conjunct Venus. Mars conjunct Mars, also a very intense physical attraction, and if you do spark off right away, I do feel like there has to be other contacts to Mars. So I know I have Mars conjunct Mars at a very wide orb with someone, but we have Sun sextile Mars going both ways. So our Mars were immediately activated by our suns. Okay, so that we immediately were attracted to each other. But I know someone else where our Mars are exactly conjunct, and it took years and years and years for us to become physical with each other. So it didn't activate on its own, Mars conjunct Mars. So I would say Mars conjunct Mars is not love at first sight either, although you'll probably initially feel an attraction. I do remember like meeting him and feeling attracted right at first, and then sort of losing that attraction for a very long time due to whatever other aspects were there, right? Like Saturn square Sun, where I just felt like he was kind of a jerk and controlling. And at the time we were friends, so he was just kind of in his own little way a jerk, right? Anyway. So before we really dig into this, and I read it verbatim and I lose most of you, Moon conjunct Moon and Moon trine Moon, I'm going to say, are probably going to be, and at least from my experience coming into contact with the Moon conjunct my Moon, I would say the only times that I've felt like love at first sight per se was that one Venus-Mars conjunction within 5-degree orb, and Moon conjunct Moon within a 5-degree orb, and then maybe even a moon conjunct moon, like within 10 degrees, I felt immediate attraction in I like in the eyes. But he was the one that was actually asking me about what like the love at first sight would be. So it made me wonder, like, did he feel that with me? And then I'm like, did I feel that with him? So, but you know, the moons are a little bit, they're like right outside of 12 degrees. So I don't know, maybe I'm reading too much into it. But I definitely know that I felt that an immediate soul recognition with the one that's within 5 degrees of me, in proper dignity. And then the Venus Mars conjunction within 5 degrees, I felt that immediate like eye contact spark. And then I want to say with Mars conjunct Pluto, it was immediate familiarity. I wouldn't say it was love. It was just I knew that he was my person. And at the time, it didn't even matter would it be for a lifetime. It just I knew that we were going to have some kind of future, and we did. For, you know, we got married and everything. Maybe that was also, and I need to make a series about this, his Jupiter was conjunct my Juno, which is a marriage aspect. So that's why we got married, even though we have divorce aspects. But I mean, I have Juno conjunct Sun and Moon with other people. I've had my Juno in one guy's 7th house that I dated. So Juno, I think it just shows the potential for you to legalize it, and that if you get married, there's a potential to get married. It doesn't even mean the marriage is going to work. It just means that you two might actually take it there and make it legal, and feel that duty to each other to do that. But I don't know if Juno could cause love at first sight necessarily. So I'm going to say with the initial familiarity with my ex-husband, it was Mars conjunct Pluto. It was just this immediate, like, we're going to be glued to the hip for a while, and I know it. And it didn't even really matter if he was the one for a lifetime. So I feel like when you have a Venus-Mars love at first sight, or a Moon conjunct Moon love at first sight, there's much more on it. Like, you're gonna feel. So, you know, a lot of people, Moon conjunct Moon's twin flame, they're in separation. They feel a longing for this person, but Mars conjunct Pluto, it's just like an immediate attachment, and I don't even know if it's quite a healthy one. So with that being said, I would say that the other times that I might say that I slightly felt like immediate eye contact attraction is a lot of, there's been two or three Mars square Venus, whether I was Venus or Mars, where there was an immediate attraction, eye contact. You know, there was something in their eyes. I just felt like there was something there. And then, of course, with Venus square Mars, it doesn't quite work out, you know. So, so with that being said, I would say Venus and Mars and the moons are going to be the most real love at first sight that you're going to get. But you're going to feel it the strongest with people that you have a moon conjunction, maybe even a trine, or Venus conjunct Mars with the proper male-female. You're still going to feel some variation of it in squares and similar contacts, maybe even out of sign moon conjunctions. So this is why, and you go to the 4th video if you really want to dig into that, but this is why it's so important, okay, to know the difference when you're feeling that feeling. But I would say yes, when it's actually the moons close together, or actually Venus and Mars close together, it's going to be much more overwhelming. Like, you're really, and it's going to feel much more mutual too, I think. At least in the moment, it's going to feel very mutual. Where Mars square Venus or something, you're like, I think they feel it too. You think, like, you know, it's something like more like that, okay? So, okay, so now I'm just really going to hammer, just going to read through this, really tedious, and see what it conjures up in me. And it's getting late. So this is just a, if you want to follow along, you can go to divinetimingdatabase.org and click on how it works. And there's a link to this there. And maybe if I have time, it'll end up over here next to you guys. So this is just basically like what a social science study would be. Right, like a peer review type study. And it's, of course, I don't think it's that, but I think it was done by somebody with that sort of analytical background. So I did study stats also in college, and they were, you know, quite advanced for me, but I have some comprehension of it. And then the social sciences, so I just think this is fun to go through. So let's see what it says. Motivation 1. Well, let's just say love at first sight. All right, love it. I'll just read it to you guys. Love at first sight, an investigation into astrology and attraction. You know what? You know what, you guys? I hate to do this to you, but I think I'm just going to make this its own video entirely, and I'm going to link it here. So definitely click on it if you want to hear this whole study, love at first sight. I'm going to make it a separate video because it's going to be quite tedious. All right? So it'll be part 2 to my rant, love at first sight. And so let me just do a quick outro here. Don't forget to submit to divinetimingdatabase.org if you want to find someone that you might have these aspects with. And it's kind of like Talkify. You get to know each other without actually seeing each other until you're ready to reveal your identities. But we do screen as best as we can, you know, and you take your time to build that trust and reveal that information. It's pretty cool because you never know who could be in there because of the anonymity of it. So with that being said, yes, definitely submit to that. And if you're curious, I know people have asked me before, and I just figured this out in the last month, what would the birth dates be of people that are very compatible with you? So I ran myself from like 1975 to whatever legal age is 18, because I had done it at first. I had told my friend, I found a match. I told him like I found a match in like 2010 or something, because I was just like nerding out on it and making it work. And he's like, oh, too bad they would only be 13. And I was like, what? Oh, I didn't even think of that. Ironically, it did just meet a lot younger Aries recently, but no, okay, anyways. So, but legal. Anyway, so I was just like, oh man, no, but I ran from like 1975 to like 2002 or something. I think that'd be like a 21-year-old. And I literally have like 200 matches of windows of birthdays. And if you think about it, there's 365 days in a year. So I did do the math on it. Let me see my calculators. We'll pull up right here on my. So if there's, what did I do? 2000. This chair is getting so squeaky, you guys, but it's so comfortable, so I don't want to throw it out. 2002 minus, let's say I did 1975. It's 27 years times 365 is 9,855. So I found 222 matches, let's say, divided by 9,865. I might be a little off there, you guys. I'm just kidding. So 2% of the population is what it's saying would be that was born, 2% of the birthdays from 1995 to 2002. So 2 out of 100 people would be a decent astrological match for me, where we have moon compatibility and no malefic deal breakers. But still, if you think about it, there's 365 days a year. So out of 30,000 birthdays almost, I only have 200 birthdays that are compatible with mine. That's only 1 out of 20 years or something like that, you know, that worth of days. So it's interesting. So if you want to check it out, if you want to know like what would the birthdays be of the people that I would work well with, that is a really cool package that I'm offering. It does take me a little bit of work, so it's not like the cheapest, but it's not expensive either. So if you're really curious and you just want to have it, because you can save it forever, so you can go out there and date. And I don't know if the dating apps actually show you their month, day, and year, or only their star sign. But you can literally probably scroll through the dating apps looking, okay, does he match my birthday on this list? And again, remember, it is give or take a few days depending on their location. So you know, if you were born in New York and I run it on New York, people born in New York, I could say like September 18th, 1995, and then in reality your soulmate was born September 14th in LA, but it still aligns because it's a 3-hour time difference or something. You know what I mean? So anyway, all right, I'm sending you all lots of love, blessings, and light.